This program is made possible by Centier Bank and PSCA, the Plan Sponsor Council of America. Centier Bank, serving Northern Indiana with 46 full-service banking centers that offer business, personal, mortgage, and investment services. Centier, locally owned and operated for 119 years. For over 60 years, PSCA, the Plan Sponsor Council of America, has served retirement plan sponsors through education and research. Information at psca.org or 312-419-1863.
Welcome to this special edition of Money Sense. I'm your host, Anthony Contrucci. We decided to take Money Sense on the road, and I'm excited to be in downtown Chicago at the Gleacher Center for the 2014 PSCA Midwest Regional Conference. Today's topic is planning for retirement.
Saving for retirement is extremely important to our employees and to our company. It's important that they end up saving for their future. I stress that in my meetings that we work and then we hopefully have fun in retirement. And to have fun, you unfortunately have to have money. And I think it's important that everybody should end up saving as much as they can. Try to stress somewhere between 10 and 15% that they should end up saving for their retirement.
Hello, my name is Dana Hammonds, and I work with the NFL Players Association in Washington, D.C. Planning for retirement is very important for NFL players, as they would love to live healthy, happy lifestyles well into their late years. We want to ensure that the money that they make during their playing careers helps to leave great legacies for their families.
Mostly what I've heard about retirement over the years is, how much do I need? And when I used to do meetings with my employees, I always said, well, have you ever heard anybody say they had too much money? Basically, you need as much as you possibly can have. Don't worry about the total number, just start saving. In terms of how much to save out of your paycheck, the most important thing is to understand your own finances. What are your needs right now? What do you think your future needs may be? And start with something and then try to keep increasing it. You always want to save more and more each time you get a raise. But there's all kinds of information out there in terms of calculators and things to help you determine how much to start with. And thinking about where to put your money in your plan, in your account, there are so many different things you can do. First of all, there's mutual funds, and within mutual funds, you've got stock funds, you've got bond funds, you've got mix funds, you've got passive, you've got aggressive, and all these terms are so confusing. You've got cash, you've got things that are like cash, so you really have to kind of look at your options and figure out where the best place is to put your money. In terms of where to put your money when you save it, the important thing is to remember to spread it around. You never want to put all your money in one place. So it's not just stocks, it's not just bonds, and don't be afraid if you don't really know what that means. There's all kinds of new things out there for you, like target date funds, things you may have in your plan that will do the mixing for you. So rely on the experts if they're available. One of the things you have to be aware of too is that there's always risks. There's risks of stock market, going down, bond market going down, but there's also risk of inflation and, the fact that over time things are going to cost more. So that's another reason why you always want to spread your money, because when one thing's up, the next thing's down, and you need to be aware of your own risk tolerance. Are you going to lose sleep at night if you see negatives in your account?
Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Bob Benish, Marlena Lee, and Liz Davidson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Liz Davidson is founder and CEO of Financial Finesse. Ms. Davidson has been widely recognized as one of the nation's leading experts in the fields of financial education. She has been profiled in hundreds of publications, radio, and television shows, including Time Magazine, the LA Times, Business Week, NBC Nightly News, and many others. Her firm, Financial Finesse, is the leading provider of unbiased financial wellness programs in the country, working with over 500 organizations and Fortune 1000 companies, reaching over 1 million Americans per year. Bob Benish is the Executive Director and CEO of the Plan Sponsor Council of America. Bob has been called in the media the Dean of Retirement Education and has spent 25 years building effective and award-winning participant and plan sponsor communication programs. He speaks on the increased need for financial literacy, as well as communication trends and how to best help employees get the most out of their 401k. Marlena Lee is Vice President of Dimensional Fund Advisors. As a Vice President on Dimensional's research team, Marlena conducts research in asset pricing and macroeconomics, which she shares through published research and in presentations to institutions and financial advisors who work with Dimensional. She has also worked as an economic consultant and in academia at the collegiate level.
We have a very exciting topic today, which is planning for retirement, as you all know. Something that I think all of our viewers can benefit from. My first question is with regards to planning for retirement. Our viewers today, what are the vehicles that they may or may not have access to that can help them to reach their retirement goals?
Well, Anthony, most people either have a defined benefit plan, a traditional pension plan, or a defined contribution plan, which could be a 401k, a 403b, 457 plan, and that's a way for them to save in the employee workplace. So those are employer-sponsored retirement plans.
Okay. You're talking about defined contribution plans, and you mentioned 401k, a 403b, and a 457. Can you maybe shed some light as to what those are exactly?
Sure, happy to. 401k plans are employer-sponsored retirement plans whereby generally the participant, the employee, joins. Now, the company may also make a contribution to those plans. 403b plans are more commonly found in nonprofit organizations, charities, higher education, typical organizations along those lines. 457 plans are more of the union plans. There are also government plans and various other ones as well.
Okay. So we have defined benefit plans, like a pension, like you mentioned, defined contribution plans. I've also heard something about these IRAs. Can maybe share a little bit about what an IRA is and maybe the different versions?
Individual retirement accounts, IRAs, have been around for a number of years and increasingly have become popular and will become more popular as people get older and have the opportunity to save in them. There are a number of different IRAs, including Roth IRAs and various other vehicles that people need to be aware of and take advantage of.
So it sounds like there's a lot of tools that the average American has at their disposal to help them achieve that security in retirement.
Exactly. Okay. Most people do have the vehicles that they need in order to save effectively for the long term for their retirement.
So let's talk now a little bit about this retirement security. I've heard a lot recently, I think a lot of the headlines are speaking to this retirement crisis. Is there a retirement crisis in your expert opinions? And if so, why?
Well, I personally think it's more of a retirement savings crisis, that the vehicles are there for people to save. It's just that people are not saving enough. And that's really the thrust behind the trend toward financial wellness. Financial wellness is a holistic approach, and through those efforts, that will enable people to invest more for their retirement, save for the long term.
Liz, can you add to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it used to be all about how you invest the money. And, there was this focus, I think the statistic is 90% of your return is based on how you allocate your assets. Okay, but if you're not putting money in or you're putting very little money in, even if you get a great return, you're not going to get there. So the industry really has shifted to this concept of financial wellness, that if you have a financial foundation and your debts are paid off or at least under control, you have an emergency fund, so you don't need to borrow from your retirement plan, and you're in a position where you have money at the end of the month, and so you're cash flow positive, that enables you to really save a lot more. And it becomes just a lifestyle choice, like any habit. Just like being physically healthy, being financially healthy is extremely important, and you can't get to retirement without being financially healthy any more than you can get to longevity without being physically healthy.
Marlena, can you shed some light potentially on what are some best practices for planning for retirement? Maybe some approaches that our viewers can utilize right now.
Absolutely. Well, it's important to start saving. And one approach to saving is to base your savings rate on your income. What we find is that if you are a high earner in those years leading up to retirement, you've probably grown accustomed to a higher standard of living, and it's going to take more saving in order to keep that up. So we advocate basing your savings rate on how much income you make. The more you make, the more you need to save.
So, okay, that's interesting. So we're talking now about savings rates based off of your income level. You know, I've heard a lot of people have opinions on that. You know, should it be 75%, 80%, 100%, 110% replacement value off your final salary? I mean, is there really a one-size-fits-all, or is there a typical rule of thumb one can live by?
It's probably better to approach replacement rates using that income variable again. What you know is that when you get your paycheck, you don't get to take all of that home. Right? You first have to pay your taxes. Hopefully a chunk of that is going to your savings, and that means that replacement rates are already going to be less than 100% of your pre-retirement gross income. And what you also see is that the more you earn, probably the more you're paying in taxes and the more you need to save. So it makes sense that replacement rates should be different for different earners. Replacement rates could be anywhere between below 60% for high earners all the way up to above 80% for lower earners.
Interesting. So we're talking a lot about, again, you know, different levels of earning potential, different levels of income, and also probably different demographics as well. So kind of maybe we'll rewind a little bit here and talk a little about those vehicles that our viewers have available for themselves right now. The 401ks of the world, the IRAs, both Roth and traditional, it sounds like Bob mentioned. Do certain generations tend to gravitate towards maybe different vehicles differently, again, based off of age or level of income, et cetera?
You know, I think it's more the ethos and approach they have to managing their money is a little bit different. And so there might be vehicles they should gravitate towards. Target date funds, for example, are particularly good if you have a relatively simple financial situation and most of your assets are in your 401k. And what a target date fund is it's projecting when you're going to retire, when you want to retire, and adjusting the investment strategy accordingly. So it's a set it and forget it. Okay. You don't need to worry about it. And it tends to be better for younger people.
So just to clarify for our viewers, a target date fund would then be an investment vehicle that would be inside one of these other vehicles like the 401k or an IRA?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's an actual investment then, where we're allocating our funds to or putting our money into this investment that's earning us a return.
And it's very convenient.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what happens is when we talk about retirement, even my generation, the Gen Xers, but certainly the millennials, it's far away and it's abstract. And we're just beginning or in the middle of our careers. We're not thinking of retirement. We're thinking of the next promotion or whatever. So it's really switching the mindset for the younger generation to financial security. Everyone wants to be financially secure. Everyone wants to be financially well. And so I think there's that dynamic, and then employers and employees kind of learning about these different vehicles and which is right for their situation. It is not one size fits all. For younger employees, like I said, target dates may be better. For older employees that have amassed more assets and have more complex situations, they may need a financial planner, or they may need managed accounts within their plan that are taking into account their full financial picture and managing their assets accordingly.
Yeah, and we're hitting on something that's a common theme here, which is this wellness. And I truly believe that, and we say it a lot on Money Sense, that total wellness today truly does consist of financial wellness, physical wellness, and behavioral wellness. And they all really interact together very closely. So it's very important to try to find that balance to the best of your ability. Just to clarify for our viewers, we talked about 401ks and 403bs and IRAs. And again, once you've decided to utilize these vehicles or participate in these plans, you then have investment options that are in those plans, things like target date funds, index funds, et cetera, that you're then utilizing to generate, hopefully, that return for you. Marlena, we've talked a lot about savings rates. Should it be based off of a constant fraction or based off of your income? What is your research telling you?
Well, we think it makes a lot of sense sense to base your savings rate on your income. In other words, you can start at very low savings rate if you have low income, as long as you're ready to save more as your income increases. We think that makes a lot of sense for a few different reasons. First of all, when you have people early in their careers, they're making less relative to what they'll make later. It may be easier for them to start this habit of savings if it's at a lower rate that might seem more achievable to them. And it also gets them into this habit of saving early on. And then they need to be ready to ramp up that savings as they make more. But behaviorally, I think it's easier to stomach saving more if you're saving out of raises. So there's a lot of advantages to basing a savings rate on how much you're making.
Interesting, and I think before you had mentioned earlier in the show that part of that is because of just standard of living, which you get accustomed to at the higher income levels, and then secondly also taxes potentially be taking a larger chunk out of that, albeit larger amount of money, that larger income. Would that be correct?
Yeah, another variable that's important to consider is Social Security. So for the higher earners, Social Security will not kick in as much in order to fund that income in retirement. More of their replacement income in retirement needs to come out of their own savings, and that's another reason they need to save more.
So the traditional three-legged stool was typically always your employer-sponsored retirement plan, personal savings, and Social Security. So the provocative question is, will Social Security be there in the future?
I personally believe it will. I certainly think that for the baby boomers, Social Security will still play a significant role in helping them in retirement. However, when I hear statistics like more people under the age of 30 believe in UFOs than believe they'll get anything from Social Security, I get a little concerned. So certainly something must be done, and there has to be some kind of reform.
Marlene, you talked about driving behavior. And I think that's key here is, how do we create, and instill in maybe the youth of today, and it's never too late to save, obviously, right, at any age of the spectrum, but especially for the 20 and 30-year-olds of today, what are some maybe ideas or advice you have on, starting to instill that behavior and then drive that behavior, for their future success and saving for retirement?
It's vitally important for people to start saving early and to save consistently. As far as advice I'd give is try and make it automatic. Don't make it a choice between having it come out of your paycheck after you've made all of these spending decisions. Have it come out immediately, and then you don't even have to think about it. And that gets to your point that it becomes almost an ethos. It becomes a lifestyle.
It's one of those things that we tell people that you should pay yourself first. And in a defined contribution plan, make a decision to save 10 or 15%. You don't see it, it's out of your paycheck, and 20, 30 years from now, you'll really think you're very smart.
It's in maybe one of those things, again, if you participate or enroll in your employer-sponsored retirement plan, again, that's coming right out automatically. Hopefully you're getting a match, right? Actually, Bob, why don't you talk a little bit about that, or Liz, about the match. What is the employer match?
One of the employer match, and that's a concept whereby employers will match a percentage of your contribution.
Okay.
The most common one is 50 cents on a dollar up to the first 6% of your salary. So basically, you're getting free money.
So if you're, I was just going to say that. I'm not the sharpest pencil in the drawer, but you're getting free money.
Free money.
So
it's an incentive to join the plan.
If you say if you're contributing, is that the right term?
That's
contributing 6%. That means you're getting, do the math here, 9% total.
That's correct.
Because they're giving you 3%.
Stay in the plan. And also, the other benefits are it's tax deferred.
Okay.
You're saving on a pre-tax basis, so it's reducing your gross salary, so you should be paying less tax. Also, it's building up in terms of compounding, and compounding is a very, very, very strong concept. And over the years, it's outstanding, and it will provide people with financial security if they're disciplined to stay in the plan and save as much as they can for as long as they can.
Okay, so it sounds like what I was getting to earlier is if they participate in these plans where they're getting often free money, which I'll take that any day of the week, and then you couple that maybe with even with your bank account, your checking account. Once maybe that paycheck hits, you just automatically save X amount, every pay period. With compounding that time value of money over time, you can really have a lot of money. That's it's a concept we've talked about in other Money Sense episodes, which is, it is a behavior. It is a discipline success at the end of the day. And we all say, oh gosh, that extra $100 a month, I don't have it, or that $50 a month, or whatever that number is that's right for you is. But it really is changing your behavior, I think it sounds like a lot. Whereas, I'm not going to go spend, that $5 a day on that coffee. I'm going to wait till I get to the office, or I'm going to have it at home. And it sounds like a lot of the little things we can do at the end of the day over time make such a huge impact on your financial picture in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you develop a habit, and this is based on brain research, there's actually a habit center in your brain. And so when you develop a habit, it can be a positive habit or it can be a negative habit. That's why they call it drug habit, right? Once you develop a habit towards saving, it becomes more uncomfortable not to do it. So right now in this country, we have a spending habit. Okay. If we can get people to instead migrate to having a saving habit and having that same rush when they save, when your reward center in your brain being triggered because I'm saving, I'm building, I'm accumulating, look at how my money is growing, that is where everything changes. And we see people, that happen all the time. I actually have an employee, we are a financial education company. He took the advice of one of our planners, and he's now able to start his own business because he had directed half of his paycheck to an investment account and completely forgot about it. One day in a workshop, he says, "Oh my God, I'm rich." Wow. He's like, "I'm financially secure. Oh my God, I forgot about this." So it's all about that.
It's freedom. It's giving you freedom. And I think, and for our viewers, I think they sense this. There's a lot of common themes throughout the shows. And again, it goes back to the discipline. It goes back to the behavior. But I also think that there's a difference between being cash flow rich and actually creating that sustainable wealth, where once you stop working, right, once you're in retirement, that you can live at that same quality of life that Marlena's talking about and not have to, cut corners or not spend time with your grandchildren or do the things that you envision doing, fulfill those dreams that you've been dreaming all of those years, because we all work very hard for our money.
That's fascinating too. So he's living off 50% of his income. So when he does retire, his income replacement is much lower. And once he had established this, where he was transferring 50% into an investment account, he naturally just started finding clever ways. Netflix instead of going to the movies. I went out to dinner with him where there's a driving service. I forget what it's called, but it's this online service, and it's much more cost effective than a taxi, and you get drivers right away. And he's just telling me about all these things and couponing and he's enjoying his life more, actually, from doing some of these things.
Liz, I agree 100%. And keep in mind, we only have 3 minutes left. For some of our viewers that are watching today, are saying, "Wow, that's great, but I'm busy. Busy at work, busy with my family." They feel like this is just overwhelming. What advice do you have for them?
One thing at a time.
Okay.
Eliminate one thing that is not necessary, that you don't even particularly enjoy, but it's become something you do. One thing at a time, and then just build from there. You don't have to conquer your entire budget all at once and slash everything.
It's definitely a marathon.
Just
right?
keep it simple. Instead of going to Starbucks 4 times a week, go once. Bank the rest.
And before I get to the last question, probably for our viewers, I would just may recommend, if you use a credit card, sit down, or a debit card, sit down. Look at your statement. Make it a quick game. It doesn't take a lot of time, but see where your money is going. So real quick, is there anything that we're missing? We've talked about spending rates. We've talked about saving. We've talked about expenses. What else should be factored into the equation that our viewers should be thinking about as they approach the retirement years?
Well, one thing to think about is the things that you buy when you're working are going to be different than the things you buy when you're retired, right? So you may not have to buy a really expensive clothes for work anymore, and that could be a cost savings. On the other hand, you may need to dedicate a bigger allocation in your budget to medical care expenses. So if you have the time to sit down and figure out what you're spending on, another thing to think about is how is that going to change when you're retired? Start trying to envision your life in retirement and try to figure out what that might look like.
It's great input. And I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we are out of it. Thank you all so very much. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed our time together. A special thank you to the University of Chicago Gleacher Center for providing us with this fantastic venue. And to my viewer audience, thank you. I hope you've had as much fun as we have, and look forward to seeing you on our next episode of Money Sense. I'm your host, Anthony Contrucci, and remember, I always try to make finance fun.
This program is made possible by Sentier Bank and PSCA, the Plan Sponsor Council of America. Sentier Bank, serving Northern Indiana with 46 full-service banking centers that offer business, personal, mortgage, and investment services. Sentier, locally owned and operated for 119 years. For over 60 years, PSCA, the Plan Sponsor Council of America, has served retirement plan sponsors through education and research. Information at psca.org or 312-419-1863.